Right. Yeah, as long as it's a reasonably structured and well supervised
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
Which maybe now is a good time since your new book coming out on June 1st is about velocity based training. We've had a few people on who talked about velocity based training and kind of the big takeaway that we've gotten from it as show hosts because I've never worked with any of the velocity based training gear, right? Like I've read a bunch of studies about it. It's been very interesting. I know that there's issues with like what type of equipment you use, how reliable your data is, and all that kind of stuff. Kind of the consensus that we've got is that velocity based training is a really great piece of feedback for athletes, feedback for coaches. It's a tool to be used with the rest of your training stuff. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you think the value of velocity based training is?
If I could list the two most impactful piece of technology and therefore training methods that anyone could adopt and with certainty see an improvement in performance, that would be velocity-based training and fatigue monitoring. So a linear position transducer and a jam mat or force plates to look at jump height and look at the effects of fatigue on your muscular performance. If you have those two pieces of technology available, you'll never once again guess volume, intensity, frequency. You won't even worry about periodization anymore because measurement of velocity is indicating adaptation. Like you can't fake velocity. Everything you do is max intent. And you try to move at the greatest velocity you can at that particular moment in time under that particular load. If you're going to move faster, you're getting more explosive. It's as simple as that. So it monitors you as you train that you have to eliminate all guesswork. Like if you're not moving fast, well, you're doing too much or you're doing too little. If you are moving fast, there's no point in really changing what you're doing and going through periodization. You just continue doing what you're doing until you're no longer moving fast. So if that's what they mean for feedback, I would agree because it gives you immediate feedback on what you need to change on your program. But on top of that, I think it also gives you a significant advantage when it comes to adaptation. Doing velocity-based training, it's superior to traditional strength training, but not because velocity-based training is unique in any particular way, it's just because it's subjective. Like every athlete trained at the load that that person needs to get stronger. That's the advantage that comes with it. The device doesn't really bring you that far unless you understand how you're using it. And you're using it to find the optimal loading that will promote better adaptation for every person you're working with. And that has to do with the actual load on the bar, but even the volume that comes with it. How many sets, how many reps. One thing is velocity target, one thing is velocity loss. They're equally contributing to shaping your program. They pretty much inform you on anything you need to know when it comes to heavy lifting. With that, I'll also add to though that it's maybe 20% of what you do in the weight room. It's not like everything about velocity-based training. Uh, Velocity-based training doesn't replace heavy lifting. It doesn't replace plyometric. It doesn't replace Olympic lift. Maybe just a little bit of it, but not entirely. It doesn't replace all the core work that you still need to do. Is that 20% that alone gives you the 80% improvement when it comes to your key performance metrics. So it's a huge investment, not just financially because these devices are expensive, but also the learning curve that comes with velocity-based training. Like it's not just plug in the device that you're doing velocity-based training. You need to use it for long enough to understand how it works and then develop your own approach to it. Um, I'm a little biased because like I've learned about velocity-based training in my undergrad because a lot of it comes from the work of Carmelo Bosco, which is an Italian researcher that spent his entire life in Finland working with the likes of Akinen and Komi. But he's the guy that kind of like pioneered velocity-based training when it wasn't even called velocity-based training. So I was exposed to that early on, and then kind of like forgot about it because nobody teaches it anymore. And then when I got my first job in the U.S. in Division One, the one I was mentioning earlier, um, my first day at work, I remember that it was yesterday. I walked in the weight room, and a guy with a suitcase walked out of the weight room at the same time, and that was the rep for a back then was the most popular velocity-based training device, and the head coach just purchased 12 units. He didn't know how to use them. He didn't want to learn how to use them, so he tasked me to say, "Okay, you're the new one. Figure it out, learn it." So that got me back into VBT and obsessed with it. And since that day that was 2013, I never looked back. I've been doing velocity-based training for the last 12 years, and I've never removed it from my program because once you understand how it works and understand the physics of it, the physiology of it, it's really a beautiful tool.
So
Okay.
I got a question off that because it was the same thing, and it's kind of funny because we almost got a grant to do velocity based training in our weight room. But what I told the principal and the football coach at the time, I was like, "You guys are gonna have to let me go like get a master's in this. It's not. This isn't like I just read a manual. I could. I'm sure I could. I'm sure I could just go like look, the screen is green, you guys are doing fine. But that's not going to do anything. I needed to learn. So one thing I am interested is, does every athlete have a different window? Like, does Kyle's very explosive. Are we going to be expecting him to be moving at a different velocity, or is there a set velocity that goes over every athlete that's like, you need to be moving weight in this window to be successful? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So the way you would normally go about it to answer that question, you will have to look at the, like, let's call it force velocity profile for the exercise, and look at the power curve of that movement and figure it out per exercise. What is the velocity that is putting you on the strength speed or the speed strength side of things? But that depends on the exercise. The normal targets that we use are for the most common exercise in the weight room, like a squat or a deadlift. And for those exercises are going to be the same for everyone. So if I want to do VBT with a back squat, no matter what the athlete is, I am personally going to go for 0.5 meter per second. And then I'm going to choose how to respond to a change in that velocity. That will makes a difference. VBT is not setting the target velocity. That's easy. You can buy a device, read the manual, it will tell you exactly what to do. And will get you there. It's like, okay, now I put you at 0.5. When that 0.5 is no longer 0.5, what do I do with that? And that's velocity based training. And that's what you really need to learn and practice because, like you said, it's a feedback that's indicating either an improvement in performance or increasing fatigue, therefore decreasing performance. And you need to know, looking at the numbers that you have available to you, so the load, the velocity, the number of reps, what changes you can do to the program to keep that program driving adaptation forward, like improving the athlete. So it's quite a complex approach, but on the surface would be nearly the same for everyone as a starting point. But the development of that program would be different from person to person because everyone will respond differently to that intensity, that volume, that particular exercise. So it gets quite complicated.